From the studios of the Department of Communication in Phillipsburg, welcome to Prime Minister Talks with Honorable Prime Minister Silveria Jacobs.
Good afternoon to you, the people of St. Martin, and welcome to episode 12 of Prime Minister Talks. I am Silveria Jacobs, Prime Minister and coordinator, or should I say chair, of the EOC. And for the past few weeks, I have been dedicating Prime Minister Talks to give some more information on some of the key functions within our ESFs. We have had Fen Arnell, we have had EF6 and 7, Joy Arnell as well, and today it is my pleasure to welcome ESF 9 coordinator, SG Hensley Plantain. Mr. Plantain is also the Secretary General of General Affairs, and I say good afternoon to you, Mr. Plantain, and welcome to Prime Minister Talks.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. It's a pleasure to be in this program with you. Good afternoon also to the people of St. Martin.
Thank you. Thank you for accepting this invitation. I would like you to take this time to explain to the general public what is the responsibility of ESF 9 and what ESF 9 is currently working on.
Yes, I'm happy to do that. ESF 9 is part, of course, of the EOC. The main role of ESF 9 is to advise government on administrative measures, legal issues. So basically, the legal foundation of the functioning of EOC is the responsibility of ESF 9. ESF 9 consists of all department heads of the Ministry of General Affairs. What we are doing now, that's the reason for me to be in this program today, is government is planning to phasing in government services. So part of ESF 9, we installed a work group that we call Ministerial Operating Center. This work group consists of representatives of all ministries of government, and they have to come with a contingency plan. So the role of the work group is sure that there is continuity of government, and after each disaster, they need to have a plan how government can go back, let me call it, to the normal function. So that is the plans that we are working on right now.
Okay, thank you. I think the general public would have heard that we are discussing within the EOC de-escalation of measures across the board. So it is important to note that government services are also being brought back on board. Can you explain how government carried out the phasing out of our public services when COVID-19 first became apparent on our shores?
Yes, that was also part of the advising of ESF 9 to government. First of all, we know what let me call it, the disaster is. It has to do with public health. So government, we had to make sure that we cleaned all the offices, make sure that we comply to the standards of hygiene as advised by another ESF group. After that, we were in discussion with government of the possibility for civil servants to work from home. In that respect, one of the members of ESF 9, the Department of ICT, did a review, an assessment, sending information, a letter to all the Secretary Generals and department heads for them to indicate what are the possibilities for their staff to work from home. First of all, the essential services that needs to continue. And second, do they have the tools to work from home? So based on that overview, we advise government that we can shut down the building because basically the majority of the essential services we could have provided from home. So that's what we did, and the Council of Ministers agree. So we, let me say, 80% of the civil servants are working now from home.
Yes, and I can also state that besides that, some of the measures we took was putting glass partitioning for those public services that continued in the latter part before the lockdown, and that serious hygiene measures were put in place, all of the hand sanitizers, cleanliness of the touch points that was being maintained by facility services, and the availability of hand sanitizer also by each station. So I think that is important to note, and it will play a role also with what will happen once we start to de-escalate measures. Apart from our emergency services, was there any government department that was still operational during the state of emergency and even now?
Well, I think you can mention that all ministries were operational, as mentioned, not necessarily from the administration building, but services that they could have given online, for example, to the public, still continue. For example, civil registry, although we only scaled it down to emergency services, for example, death certificates, birth certificates, but they were still working from home, and you still had the back office staff that needs to prepare for the service to provide to the public. If we mention civil servants working, let me call it internally, providing advice to the Council of Ministers, most of the advices were still being prepared online. We had, based on the technology, we still had meetings via the software Teams. So I had meetings with my managers, and I'm sure that all the SGs had those meetings also. And like I said, the Department of ICT facilitated those. So we were working, although limited, but we made sure that all the ministries could provide their ministers with the necessary advices so that the ministers can continue to function.
That is most definitely true, and I must add that civil registry continue to do emergency services, births, deaths, attestati de vita. Labor services was serving people mostly over the phone or via internet, as well as social services. And the Ministry of Finance also was dealing with online payments, as well as checks that were dropped off, etc. It's just that the public was discouraged from coming to the building. I would like to, at this moment, remind you that you are watching Prime Minister Talks. This is a weekly program, and we will be right back after this short break.
Prime Minister Talks with Honorable Prime Minister Sylvaria Jacobs.
Hey Linda, qui jan ou ye lakay?
Moi, je senti très bien.
Oh, qui sa ou senti? Jou sa yo ou dwe fè attention à COVID-19.
Moi, senti comme si je venais avec une grippe.
Ou besoin yon bagay pou sa. Mwen si jere ou rele dokter lakay yo. Sonje, si ou gen n'importe, titus, la fièvre, souffrance dans l'esprit, ou soit grippe, ton coup symptôme lita COVID-19.
Merci Maria, qui t'aime, relève mon docteur.
Si ou gen n'importe signe, ou soit symptôme COVID-19, relève docteur ou soit si ou gen n'importe question, relève collectif profession service à 914.
À non service public ça sorti dans gouvernement Saint-Martin. The following public service announcement brings to you a few of the many unsung heroes in the medical profession who are working tirelessly to put our needs ahead of theirs and in the midst of this battle to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Listen closely to their message so that we all can remain safe.
Good day, General Public of St. Martin. I'm Dr. Felix Holliday, General Surgeon and Medical Director of the St. Martin Medical Center. I'm staying at work for you, so please stay home for me. Stay safe.
My name is Christina Jacobs-Burkle. I'm the Junior Patient Care Manager. COVID-19 affects everyone, so please, everyone, let's protect everyone and stay home.
Hi, I'm Meandra Hazel, ICU nurse. I'm a frontline nurse and I'm asking you to be a frontline citizen. Please stay home, save a life. Help me to help you.
This public service announcement is brought to you by the St. Martin Medical Center and the government of St. Martin.
Prime Minister Talks with Honorable Prime Minister Sylvaria Jacobs.
Welcome back to Prime Minister Talks, episode 12. And if you're just joining us, I'm having a conversation with the Secretary General of General Affairs and ESF 9 Coordinator, Mr. Hensley Plantain. To get back into what we were talking about, but weren't those PSAs great? I'm so proud of DCOM for what they have produced thus far, and it's the first time that I saw the Creole message, so keep up the good works. DCOM also falls within General Affairs. So as I go back to the discussion, can you tell me a little bit about, or the general public, about the appointments for government services? How can these be arranged during the state of emergency?
Let me first say, PM, that I'm also very proud of the work that DCOM is doing. So the PSAs are, and you know my expression, master. So I'm very proud of that. Appointments. This is a very, let me call it a sensitive point that we discuss, because we need civil servants in the organization. We need to provide service, but based on the situation, working from home, working online. So how are you going to do that? So we focus on, and especially if we want to maintain the social distancing. So we focus on, like I mentioned before, the emergency services. So what are the services that really need to be provided? And can we make the appointments via online? I take, for example, civil registry. What civil registry did and still do, they call the client. So they check regularly their emails. They look at the appointments. They have to, of course, make sure that which one is emergency, which one is not, and the emergency services that they can provide, they will pick up the phone, call the client, and then make an appointment to either meet them at the building. And if that is not necessary, provide them with the information online. And according to a conversation I had this morning, for example, with the head of civil registry, there are no complaints, and the public is happy with the service that they are providing. I understood that all the other departments are doing that in the same way. I have to mention another department in General Affairs, that's Public Service Center. They are coordinating all those appointments with the departments that are providing services to the public. So as mentioned, the appointments are going online, and when needed, the department or a staff in the department will contact the client and then make an arrangement if they have to come physically to the building or send them the information online.
I am so happy to see that we are making some progress with that. It was great for me to hear from the department when we had our meeting early this week as to what services were still available, etc. Do you believe that there are benefits of working from home? This is something that I'm seeing that it was not in government's policy before, and I'm seeing that it can probably have some benefits, especially where family is concerned. So what do you think?
Well, I can start by telling you I'm very happy working from home. But of course, you don't want just my personal feeling. Um, like always, everything has their pro and cons. One of the things that you really have to take very seriously in consideration if you want to work from home is self-discipline. Although you can have flexible hours, but it's self-discipline. Um, you need to make sure that you have a agenda, a structure, and deadlines. You really need to meet your deadlines because there is no one to call you in a meeting or no one physically to walk past your office to see if you're working. It has its benefits. For example, cost of government for building, you have to hire buildings, you have to have an office, all those furniture for government, so that will lower the cost also. Um, whole discussion also, and again, um, I'm not the right one to mention this, but if you have children, how you handle your children and your time also, I think that will be a benefit also. At the end, it's about the the production, the service that you have to render. So you need to advise government. You have to be on time with your advice. You have to make sure that you have contact with your department head. If you're a department head with the secretary general and the secretary general with the minister. So it has its advantages, but I think self-discipline and making sure tools go a long way. Maybe that will also have an impact on traffic in the morning. It has its benefits. Like I said, I would volunteer to start working from home. So I think it's something very positive.
Thank you for that insight. I know for many it is a blessing, and we will definitely have to look at how we will incorporate that in the way moving forward. And talking about moving forward, do you see it possible that social distancing can be properly practiced while working in the government building or buildings?
Yeah, I think with the working from home, it will be the ideal situation because now we are talking about the phasing in of government services, and there are some requirements that we need to take into consideration when civil servants are coming home. For example, if you have an office, depending, of course, on the size of the office, but you have more than one civil servant in an office, social distancing at the beginning. But if you have, for example, four staff in an office and two can work from home, so government needs to encourage the two that can work from home to work from home, and then the two can have a bigger space to share. So distancing in the administration building, we need to combine them with the services that we can provide from home and make sure that the civil servants have the right tools. I have to mention that by now, most of the civil servants are working from home anyway, so they have the support from the Department of ICT. So when you are facing in the services of government, the ones that can stay home, if they stay home, it will make it easier for the social distancing. What we can also do to avoid to have in a building is work in shifts. For example, something new for government, start to work in shifts, start to work in the morning at the building. Of course, they have to go home, continue their work, working the regular hours, and then the other one will come to the building maybe after their lunch break and then work the regular hours in the building. So those are alternatives that we are discussing now, and I think it is very much possible to do it.
Okay, thank you so much for that elucidation, so that the persons following would understand that government services has been continuing and will continue, and that soon they will be able to also come to the building to handle essential services. I'll now take a break and we'll be back for the last segment. This is Prime Minister Talks.
Prime Minister Talks with Honorable Prime Minister Sylvaria Jacobs.
El COVID-19 se puede transmitir de persona a persona. Por eso, para mantenerse seguro, hay que conservar una distancia de por lo menos 2 metros o 6 pies de otra persona. No besos, no abrazos y no dar la mano. Este mensaje lo trae el Servicio de Prevención de la Comunidad.
Une épidémie mondiale a été déclarée cause par le coronavirus COVID-19. Voici quelques conseils de santé à garder à l'esprit pour vous protéger, vous et votre famille. Surveillez votre santé pendant 14 jours après avoir voyagé. En cas d'apparition de symptômes de la maladie, toux et fièvre ou sensation de fièvre, il ne faut surtout pas se rendre directement chez le médecin ou aux urgences, mais d'appeler à l'avance. Maintenir une distance d'au moins 1 mètre avec les personnes qui toussent ou qui éternuent. Si vous avez besoin d'une assistance immédiate, il convient de faire appel à votre médecin traitant ou aux urgences. En cas d'infection, informez votre médecin de vos symptômes, de vos voyages récents ou si vous avez été exposé à une personne atteinte de COVID-19. Pour davantage d'informations sur le coronavirus COVID-19, un numéro a été mis en place au 914. Cette annonce de service public vous a été présentée par le Centre d'épidémie et de la prévention et le gouvernement de Saint-Martin.
Prime Minister Talks with Honorable Prime Minister Sylvaria Jacobs.
Welcome back to Prime Minister Talks. Prime Minister Talks, our 12th episode. It is my pleasure to be here today with the Secretary General of General Affairs and ESF 9 Coordinator, Mr. Hensley Plantain, who is working from home and is happy to do so. We have had a good discussion pertaining to how government services were phased out, that we are currently planning how to phase it back in, and also what services are still available even in this state of emergency. I would like to encourage those persons to visit government's Facebook page and government's website for more information as to how to make appointments, etc., and to ensure that they are consistently properly socially distancing. I saw in the video just now that CPS put out. It is a clear description regardless of which language, and we can all follow that and stay safe. Mr. Plantain, also besides, leading the ministry, the legislative part, almost each time that the EOC has to take a decision, sometimes some type of legislative document is needed. Can you give a little bit of insight into that over this past emergency period?
Yes, I can. We started with activating the EOC, and when we started, we had to make sure that what is the role of the ministers, and so information. We had to have an information session to discuss the legal basis of the EOC, as mentioned in the National Ordinance Disaster Management, that when the EOC is activated, the Minister of General Affairs, the Prime Minister, will become the chair of the EOC, and the Prime Minister will be politically responsible for all decisions taken by the EOC. In practice, this means that the relevant ministers, when a decision is taken in EOC, let me put it like this. The chair of the EOC, when a decision is taken, the chair of EOC needs to inform the Council of Ministers so the relevant ministers can execute the decision. So legally, the foundation, as I mentioned in the beginning of the EOC, is the National Ordinance Disaster Management. And then we are in the next phase. The next phase, the phase that we are in, is the state of emergency. The legal foundation for the state of emergency is the National Ordinance State of Emergency. In there, it is also mentioned that the Prime Minister is the one responsible and authorized to call the state of emergency. This has to be done by national decree. So ESF 9 will advise, or has advised PM on the moment to call the state of emergency and prepare the national decree. National decree, as we know, is the legal instrument that has to be signed by the governor and co-signed by the minister. So between the cabinet of the minister and governor, there had to be certain discussions on how exactly we state of emergency. When the national decree is signed and the state of emergency is in place, still ESF 9 has a very important role to guide that decisions taken are in accordance with the national decree and in accordance with the national ordinance. I have to mention also that one of the requirements mentioned in the national ordinance state of emergency, that when a state of emergency is called, the parliament needs to be advised, informed. And based on that, parliament also has a role to monitor. The public may remember that 2 days ago and 3 weeks ago, the Prime Minister was in Parliament to give an update on the situation of COVID, but most importantly, the state of emergency. ESF 9 was present among others ESF groups to support the PM, because there are legal questions to explain again the foundation, the legal basis of decisions taken by the EOC and by the government. And next to that, when the national decree was in place, we also had a clause in the national decree that, for example, essential services, but also the hours of the curfew would have been adjusted by ministerial regulation. So that also, after having discussion in EOC, ESF 9 was the one that had to prepare the ministerial regulation together with the cabinet of the Prime Minister, and also in this case with ESF 6 public health and ESF 10.
Yes, I'm sorry to cut you cross, but we are running out of time for our segment. Mr. Plantain?
I have so much more information.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I know.
Yes, I'm here.
Alone. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of the program, and I don't want to rush you off, but it looks like we need to get you back to explain maybe how the national decrees and ministerial regulations work, as we're busy with another one moving forward. So I will be able to, in our EOC press conference on Friday, tomorrow, probably offer you an opportunity to explain the new the new national decree as we move forward in the state of emergency, even as we de-escalate measures. I think it's been a quite informative session this afternoon, and I look forward to you sharing more as we move forward in this COVID-19 new normal, whereby social distancing and super high hand hygiene is the order of the day. So remember, practice proper social distancing and ensure that you call 914 or your doctor to be handled by our professionals. The numbers are going down, but the information continues to be updated daily. As long as it changes, you can check it out on www.stmartingov.org/coronavirus. For all updates, visit the Facebook page of government or our 107.9 FM government radio station. We continue to bring you information as often as possible in as many languages as possible to ensure that all residents of St. Martin are well informed and so that we can be safe and stay blessed for 2020 and beyond. Be blessed, St. Martin.